is a topic that always fascinated Greek temple, we are quite lucky to have other planets like Saturn and Jupiter as a protection. What do you think? Which of the four categories is of an animal which is called the sea urchin? This is clearly behavioral. Even that bird will be able to build one of these nests. The bird that doesn't learn how to make a nest. So must change house quite frequently. Natural evolution. I really speak about Darwinian evolution. You know, the topic of the origin of human inhabitation is a topic that always fascinated architects in the past. Starting from Vitruvius, the first theorists of architecture, they all loved to discuss and to try to understand something about the origin of human building construction. This is a picture of some art, Adam and Eve sent out from the paradise and building their first hut here on Earth. As you see in the past, this topic has been investigated with symbolic tales to explain something, usually to explain the origin of the Greek temple, or they didn't really have in the past any instrument to say something about how the architecture was born. In more recent time, English and Italian schools of typology started to come out with something more interesting. Now look this image. I hope you can see it. In the first column, we find the four types of shelters. Shelters are the kind of house that nomadic people build. People who has to run where the food is, so must change house quite frequently. In the second column, you have huts. Huts are the kind of houses that human made when they invented agriculture. So they managed to stop in one place, not to go around. They could build more permanent solutions. Usually the duration of a hut is the duration of the life of a human being. Not more, not less. While the shelter was built every now and then. In the third column, we have houses. It means one family in one place. You see that the walls start to become, they are no more round, they became perpendicular. And we will see why, we will analyze all these steps. And in the last column, you have condominium. It means one construction for many families inside. These are the four cycles of human building construction: shelters, huts, houses, condominiums. Now, when we come to line, we see in the first line what we call geomaterial area. The first line is the wooden geomaterial area. It means wherever human beings find wood, abundant source of wood, they prefer that material to build. It's easy. It's already in a shape that can be used in construction, and it's light, easy to work. Whenever wood is not available, mud is the preferred materials. Why? The reason is, you see, if there is no wood, it means there is no water. It means there is no lot of rain. If there is a lot of rain, you will have wood. If there is no wood, it means there is no rain. So you can build by mud. You are not afraid. Of course, if there is too much rain, the mud will dissolve and decompose. But if there is no wood, means no big rain, it means you can use mud. Then in the third line, we have the lithic geomaterial area. It means if you don't have wood, and you don't have mud, you will use stone. It's more heavy to build a wall out of this material, but you will do it if you don't have any chance, if you don't have wood and you don't have mud. If you don't have wood, you don't have mud, you don't have stone, oh, brothers, we are in problems. This is a big trouble. What we can use? In fact, the last line is called specialized materials area. It means if from the environment I cannot get any good material, no wood, no mud, no stone, it means we are in the desert. or it means we are near to the North Pole, in the snow. In both cases, you will come out inventing some new materials. In the past, it means to use the skin of an animal, for example. In the modern time, it means to use concrete and other made-up materials. So you see now 4 cycles of constructions: shelters, huts, houses, condominium, and 4 geomaterial areas: wooden, earthen, lithic, and specialistic. You will also see that this diagonal is marked with a bigger perimeter, with a thicker line. This is because preferentially all these kinds of houses exist somewhere in the world, but preferentially the shelters are made out of wood, the huts are made out of mud, the houses are made out of stone, and the condominiums are made out of specialistic material. So this point, the main corner, top left, that is what we call the origin of human inhabitation or human dwelling. This has already been said long before I started my PhD. So I decided for my research to try to investigate about what happened before then. All the history from the first huts up to the condominiums is quite well documented, while nobody studied what happened before. And this is the topic that I want to bring you. I'm aware that some of us or most of us may not really believe in evolution. Of course, I'm not here to convince anyone. You can just take it as a history or as a fantastic event. But this is the topic that I have to face now. Here I put a fast timeline, as I say, a brief history of everything. From the Big Bang, which happened 13.8 billion years ago. Now we read together this list, keeping in mind that I selected specific events. Some really important event is not mentioned here, just because all these events will be important when we come to architecture. So I selected only these important points. We are trying to make the big history of human dwelling. Big history, it means to start from the very beginning, from the beginning of everything, from before the beginning, if possible. One historian called David Christian theorized this idea of big history, and I'm following him. And last thing, in this list of events, we focus on the branch of evolution which brought to human being. We will not take in consideration a lot of other interesting things happen in other kingdoms, but we are interested really about the line which brings to human being. Let's go through this list. 6 billion years ago, more or less, the solar system took form. Okay. Some matter caught in the gravity, in the center of gravity where the sun went, and around all the rest of the matter coagulated, forming 8 different planets. We are quite lucky to have other planets like Saturn and Jupiter, which are quite large, and with their own gravity field attracted the asteroids, so that the Earth was quite safe from the asteroids. And this was very important for the development of life. Once, 1 billion years later, around 5 billion years ago, the Earth took place. It was very hot, like a small sun, so everything was liquid. And the metal, which is the most heavy element, started to go to the bottom, to sink to the bottom. This is how the nucleus of our planet took shape. And this is why, until today, we have a magnetic field around us. And as you see, magnetic field is quite important because it protects us from sun wind. If there was no magnetic field, some particles with really high energy would hit our planet. And in that case, DNA, the molecule that is building every living object, could not survive to this high energy radiation. So this was the second shield that protected us. After the gravitational field, then the Earth cooled down. It became cold enough to have no more just fire on the surface. And around 4.2 billion years ago, we started to have liquid water on Earth. The comets brought to us, step by step, liquid water. The Earth was cooled enough to keep the water between 0 and 100 degrees, so ocean formed, and we had organic chemistry inside our planet for the first time. We don't know how, but we do know when. Around 3.8 billion years ago, the first form of life appeared on our planet. Nobody can say if the life was formed on this planet or if it arrived with some asteroids from outside, but we know that it started in our planet around 3.8 billion years ago. Of course, it was prokaryotic life. It means very easy kind of monocellular beings. For the next 2 billion years, our Earth was quite a boring place. Just this kind of life, no multicellular life, no complex life, no life outside the water. It was a really boring place for 2 billion years. Until around 900 million years ago, the first eukaryota livings started. Eukaryota are a bit more complex. They have a membrane, but they have also some organules in the external part of the cell. And when eukaryota arrived, immediately multicellular organisms start to form. This is a tardigrader, one of the first multicellular living beings. Some other time, and around 500 million years ago, in our seas, we had the first vertebrates. Vertebrates means some animal who has the spinal cord. And these are our ancestors. If you look, your father, your grandfather, your grand-grandfather, first or late you will arrive to him. The first vertebrate appeared around 500 million years ago. Another 200 million years later, and the first animal came out from the sea. The first animals were amphibians, and still to depose eggs, they were going back to the sea. They were living on the ground, but every now and then going back in the sea. 90 million years ago, we became arboreal mammals. It means we left the ground, too much dangerous. There are some other bigger, quite much bigger animals, so we went to live on the trees, and we became mammals. Another step, and we arrived 14 million years ago. We became primates, and from there we have a record of fossils which is quite clear how and when we separated with the other primates and we became humans around 1 million years ago, little bit more. It depends what you mean by human. If you mean Homo, it means 1.6 million years ago. If you mean Homo sapiens, it's just 200,000 years ago. Quite interesting, as I said, Homo sapiens started to live around 200,000 years ago, but the first shelters, and after I will show you, the first shelters that we found are 500,000 years old. It means Homo sapiens was not the first one to build shelters. Probably our relatives, like Homo antecessor, started to build it. Then, around 10 or 12,000 years ago, agriculture was invented. The first cities arrived 8,000 years ago, and the first empires, that means a network of cities, started around 2,000 years ago. Also here, it depends what exactly you mean by empire. Let's leave here this big history, this big picture, and let's focus on protection devices. This is because the house is, first of all, a protection device. Of course, nowadays, a house is not only protection, it's a lot of things. It's a safe place, a place to raise children, a place to eat food, to conduct different activities. But firstly, the house was just a protection. So let's see together 4 kinds of... First of all, we divide the protection in behavioral protections and non-behavioral protections. What is the difference between these two things? You know, informally, we could even say that these are 2 different kinds of houses. We say houses. But while this one simply grow from a genetic instinct, from a genetic action, this one required a behavior. Here there is a bird who did something to get this protection. This one is not different from our hair or our nails. It just grows without any behavior. This one requires some finalized sequence of actions to be obtained. Now let's subdivide the non-behavioral protections and in environmental and phenotypical, and the behavioral protection in extended phenotype and conscious. Okay, let's start from the non-behavioral. Environmental protections are some protections that are just found. It was already there. Some individual just went there and used it. While the phenotype is something that our own body grows. So let me ask you, this is a piece of lemon tree. There are some leaves, and I don't know if you can see, but there are a lot of holes in these leaves, after you can take a look at it. This is an insect who used as a protection these leaves. It deposited his eggs under the leaves, so they are shielded from the sun as a protection. What do you think? Which of the 4 categories is this protection? Environmental, exactly. It means the tree was already there for other reason, and this insect just used it to protect his eggs. Look this now. This is the exoskeleton of an animal which is called sea urchin. Which of the 4 categories is this protection? You can see very clearly that is a protection. But from which of the 4 categories? Phenotypical, of course, this is a phenotype. This, like a nail or like a hair, grows by itself for genetic information. What about this one? This is clearly behavioral, but I divided the behavioral protection in 2 categories: extended phenotypes and consciousness. What is the meaning? I have to explain you this. You know, if you take if you take the egg of a bird and you disclose it in artificial situation, so that when the bird is born, he never saw in his life a nest, because he was born in an artificial situation, even that bird will be able to build one of these nests. What is the meaning? The meaning is, this answers to the question of Dr. Meretu before, the meaning is the bird doesn't learn how to make a nest. The bird was born with inside his genes all the information that he needed to produce this nest. On the other side, this is another kind of protective device. This one was produced, I believe, by a human being, and it was produced as it is not because in our gene there is the information to build a helmet. This one was consciously produced, purposely, using logic and using skills. So I hope now you see the difference between environmental protections, phenotype protection, extended phenotype, and consciousness are 4 different categories of protection devices. So now let's see, from each of these happenings, we have different kind of protective devices. Of course, as you would expect, the first protections are the most ancient ones are environmental. Then we started to have some phenotypical protection. Then we passed to the extended phenotype. Here there is the origin of human building construction. Let's have a read to it quite fastly, and then all my presentation is about this history. This is the big history that I want to demonstrate as being one, not different and interrupted histories. Okay, when the solar system formed, it was the gravitational field, the thing that protected us and helped us to stay near to our sun, which is our source of energy. Then the magnetic field shielded the Earth so that the life could start. A last but very important protection we had from the atmosphere. You know, in the very beginning, the first volcanoes produced an atmosphere, a gas atmosphere around the Earth. And that was helpful because without atmosphere, we would have around 200 degrees during the days and minus 200 degrees during the night. The fact that we have an atmosphere around us protects us from this extreme temperature change. So the atmosphere is the one that allowed us to start to collect water from arriving from the comets. Because if there was no atmosphere, the water would immediately evaporate during the day. While with the atmosphere we started to accumulate water bodies. The water bodies started to produce organic chemistry, and among them there is one really interesting thing, lipidic molecules. They are with a big head from one side and a very small part on the other side, so that when they meet each other, they automatically create a sphere without any designer, without any framework. They automatically connect themselves to become minuscule spheres. And these lipidic spheres probably are the one that the first living molecule used. The first living organisms, for sure they were very simple, and probably it was just one molecule able to duplicate itself. Something similar to what today we call RNA. DNA came later, it is a little bit more complicated, but life started most probably with something similar to RNA, shielded by lipidic spheres. Then, from this point, the Darwinian evolution, so the success of the fittest, started to shape their own membranes, some phenotypical traits which are membrane. The membrane of the prokaryota were very easy, then passing to the eukaryota, it became a cell wall. And when it became a cell wall, it means multicellular living beings started to come in existence. Multicellular living beings need eggs, which were not present in all the form of life, in all the prokaryota. They don't have eggs. When one cell wants to reproduce, simply from one it becomes two through mitosis, easy process. There is not one father and one son. From one single cell living being, it becomes two. But for multicellular organism, the egg shell start. We were in the water at that time, and so we started to build with a behavior. So as an extended organism, we started to build nests. And we will go through 4 different kinds of nests. The one that that fish build, so our ancestors, when they were living in water, were building. We will pass through digged burrows that ground animal use. We will arrive to arboreal nests, which are in use from flying and arboreal living animals. And we will arrive to the bed, the structure of the primates. Then there is the origin of architecture. From the bed that primates build on the trees to the ground shelters that terrestrial monkeys like us build on the ground. And as we already saw before, from that to the hut, from the hut to the house, and from the house to the condominium. This is the general framework of what I'm going to show you. A last observation, I told you about extended phenotype, which are behavioral protections and conscious built protections. There is a big difference among these two. They are both behavioral, but look at these trees. These trees represent evolution. In case of genetic evolution, like in the extended phenotype protection devices, we can only have two branches coming from one branch. You can never have one branch coming from the meeting of two branches. But this thing can happen in the cultural evolution. Cultural evolution can cross the species. If I see a bird building something interesting, I can copy it, even if I'm not related genetically to the bird, even if there is a very big distances. So you see that in this tree, you can have two branches from one, but also you can have one branch from two. They can reunite themselves. What I mean is cultural evolution is much faster. This one, no need to ask, is a phenotype. Of course, the shield of a tortoise is a direct phenotype. And this is the history, the evolutionary history of helmets. So you see from 1,000 years ago, the most basic kind of helmets, and then in different areas, in different cultures, it evolved in different branches. Again, you see the similitude among cultural and the genetic evolution, while is not the same. Okay, so here we have some single-cell organism producing their protection. This is a prokaryote, this is eukaryote, so you see more easy and more complicated kind of membrane. But still the situation was quite easy. The membrane is just something to fold the individual and to protect. This is an amoeba called Difflugia, a species of amoeba called Difflugia. And all these shells are not directly produced by the body, so they are not a phenotype. All these are somehow built using very small sense of a grain of sand. How can a living organism without brain, you know, monocellular life has no brain, have no nervous system. So the first architects of the history had no brain. Today architects, they are working at it, but the first building animals had no brain, and they managed to build this kind of structure. Now, how can a small amoeba without brain collect some bigger grains and produce this part and leave the smallest one to produce that one? That is something that still is not really clear. There is something going on there. Research is working on that. Then I already told you when from single cell we pass to multicellular organisms, we have this new kind of shield. Before, just the skin of the individual was the only kind of shell. But when we pass to multicellular organisms, we have a new kind of protection, the one who has to protect our babies. So the first eggs of the history were deposited in the sea when we were aquatic chordates or vertebrates. These are very small eggs the idea was very clear. In the water, a lot of eggs will be lost. A lot of eggs will be eaten by other animals. So the only criteria for a fish is make as much eggs as you can and zero parental care. It means they will just depose this. Also, you know, the fishes have external fecundation. It means the female goes somewhere and leave these eggs on the ground. Then the male come, leave his smaller eggs to fecundate this. And the fish, when they born, they never meet the face of their father or their mother. They just have to go by themselves. That is why fishes are making a lot of eggs, because very few of them will become a fish. But you see, I say the zero parental care. It was not really true, because already the first aquatic vertebrate started to build something. They didn't have hands at the time, so they were using the tail. With the tail, they were excavating a small kind of nest, which is called red, with double D, R-I-D-D. So the eggs stay there. When the current of the water comes, here a low pressure area is created so that the eggs will not go everywhere, but just will stay there around. This is the first extended phenotypical protection in the animal kingdom. Some fishes nowadays, of course not in the extreme past, but nowadays some fishes are able to build something which is really magical. You know, around Australia, it happened that they started to find some swimmer. They were going around looking the sand on the bottom of the sea, and they found these kind of things. And they thought it must be some people who want to make a joke, but then they started to find more and more, and they were wondering who is making this kind of beautiful pieces of art. And then one day, a guy from BBC with a camera managed to find this guy, this small fish, using his body, his belly, was digging in the ground a perfect circle. You know, this is a nest because in all these places the eggs of the woman are going to stay, as I showed you before. But there is also some artistic value. Have you would ever guessed that even fish can have some artistic way? Okay, of course, this is to attract the female. Is the male the one who makes this drawing? And this to attract the female, to convince him, to convince her that he is a good partner. When the first animals started to leave the sea to go on the ground, it was a problem for the eggs, because the eggs of the fish, if they stay even 1 minute outside the water, they will get dry. So the first animals to come out from the ground, they started to produce some similar aquatic environment. It means, probably you already met this one, going in the grass. It seems a spit, a human spit, but it is not. It's produced by these animals to try to keep the eggs in the right amount of water. Animals became rid of this problem when they became amniotes. Amniotic egg is a new kind of egg, similar to the one of the chicken. Amniotic egg is completely shielded. Water cannot come in and go outside. So it's a very good egg to protect the children outside of the sea. Now, the problem is if you make your egg completely closed, not like the fish one where the water can come inside. If you close completely one egg, you have to put it inside not only the embryo to grow, but also some food for the embryo to eat until he will come out from the egg. So usually when you eat an egg, you will see the yellow part, that is the embryo, is the one that is becoming the chicken. All the white part, that is simply food for the baby to eat until he can come out from the egg. This means one egg asks much more energy from the parents. They can no more make thousands of eggs like the fishes, because each egg requires a lot of energy. So they start to make 1 egg, 2 eggs, 10 eggs, anyway, a very smaller amount of egg, so that the parental care becomes more important. If you make 1,000 eggs, you can just leave them, they will take care of themselves. From 1,000, 2 will survive, it's fine. If you make 1 egg or 10 eggs, you have somehow to take care of it in a good manner. So these are all the different kind of eggs which evolved from the branch of animals. And the first terrestrial animals started to build what we call burrow, digged structure, which is a kind of artificial womb. This is an artificial womb. That is why we call it extended phenotype. The phenotype is a womb. An artificial womb is an extended phenotype, so that the eggs can stay here safe from the predators and in a protected environment with constant humidity and constant temperature. Some animals brought this idea of burrows to extreme levels of complexity. This is a termite nest. Here we are in southern Ethiopia. You are full of this kind of structures around. On the left, you can see that a termite nest is really a complicated place. They are cultivating mushrooms in these areas. They have a queen that is living here. They have aeration to keep humidity safe. And here there is not in the drawing, but there are also some vertical channels which can go up to 40 meters down to collect water. So this is an extremely complex kind of burrow. Some researchers, particularly cruel researchers, decided to throw melted metal, specifically melted aluminium, inside one termite nest, one termite mound, and then to dig it out. So this is negative positive, the structure, the inner structure of the termite nest. Also, some human beings, for some strange reason, in the past have built burrows. This is in Turkey, a small city. You know, there was a farmer here, and inside his house he just found by accident the access to one full city built underground. And now this is completely visible. If you go to Turkey, don't miss Derinkuyu, a visit to Derinkuyu. We don't know what pushed these people to build a city, a 50,000 people city, with schools, with mosques, with a lot of things inside. To stay on the nest started to represent really a danger when big predators started to come in being. And this is why many species changed from ground nesting or ground burrowing to arboreal nest. So you see, around 50 million years ago, we were kind of small rats. Our ancestors were big like rat. This is the nest of a rat nowadays. So we can infer, we can suppose that in those time, around 50 million years ago, we were producing probably some aerial nests not different from this one. The cycle of the nest is very variegated, and you see some bird. This is, by the way, a weaver bird that is also in Ethiopia, but this is a different variety living in South America, and they build this kind of condominium nest. All the entrances are from down, and on this pole probably hundreds of birds are nesting together. Some nests are made out of stone, Some nests are made out of clay. This is a kind of bird which is living also in Italy, in my country. And they build this kind of nest. They reuse it every year. They don't build. They make one time the effort to build a nest, and then they reuse it every year. This is Northern Africa. I don't know if it is Algeria. Probably it's in Algeria. This human nests. You see, no, the similitude among these two structures. This is called the gardener bird. Gardener bird is used to decorate their homes with blue and red colors. Whatever they find, if it is blue or red, they will keep it. Again, is the male who builds the nest. In most of the birds, is the female. Here is the male building the nest just to invite mates to stay with him. These are rondon nests, and Vitruvius, the first architecture theoretician, thought that this was the example for the first human beings to build their houses. And if we take a look in Iraq, Iran, Mesopotamia, you find what they call beehive houses, which are really quite resembling that kind of rondon nest that we have seen. Oh, this is fantastic. This is a Chinese bird which is building a big entrance, fake, just to trick the snake. When the snake comes, he thinks the room is empty and there is no egg to eat there. But then in a fake veranda, let's say, they make the real entrance through where the mother is coming to feed the babies. So you can see nests can arrive to a certain degree of complexity, but it can also be very easy. In this case, they are just two leaves weaved together by the mother bird. Now you see, when our ancestors were building burrows, they really needed it. It means many amphibians, they cannot resist the sun for more than 1 hour or 2. They have to go back to their burrow. So because they are so-called cold blood animals, so they cannot regulate their own temperature. That is why they spend most of their time inside their burrows. When the animals started to have hot blood, it means to be able to regulate the temperature themselves, the nest was not really so much necessary. So the most ancient nests were the dome kind nest, like this one, the one that I brought you. And then in the millennia, from dome nest, we passed to cup nest. It means the birds, they were using less energy and less time to build the nest because it was no more necessary like before. While these guys arrived, the first primates of the world, they no more depose eggs, so again they don't really need a nest, but they have the spontaneous knowledge of how to build a nest. It's written in their DNA. So they continue to do it, and they use it as a bed. In fact, this is called a chimpanzee bed. Every chimpanzee builds during a day 4 or 5 of these beds. It's just for resting. And then, of course, when they have a baby, father and mother together, they build a much more comfortable bed, sometimes even with a kind of roof on the top of it. They use in a very efficient way the structural behavior of a live wood, but they never build a ground nest. Here you see a chimpanzee which is building a ground nest, but I have just said that they never do it. You see, the only reason why this chimpanzee is building a ground nest is what you see here in the back. These are not free chimpanzees. When they are in a zoo, they somehow understand that there is no danger of any predator to come. And so they build ground nests, not very efficient, not very well built, but they do it. And this suggests us something crucial about the beginning of human building construction. This is something, if today you will remember something of what I have said, I would really appreciate if it is this that I'm going to tell you now. In this moment, when our ancestors decided to come down from the trees and to start to live on the ground, something happened, and this something related with the quality of our sleep. You see, all the other monkeys, all the other primates, excluded human being, they don't have deep sleep. They are always half awake. They don't sleep deeply. They sleep deeply only when they are very small child. In the first 1, 2, 3 months of their life, they sleep deeply. For the rest of their life, they don't. Why this happens? Because if you sleep on a tree, if you are in a deep sleep, you may fall down and die. If you are in the ground, some animal can come during the night and eat you. So wherever you sleep, you cannot really sleep deep sleep. And during deep sleep, which is called REM sleep, rapid eye movements, our eyes are moving very fast during that phase of sleeping. That moment of our sleep is crucial for our brain to absorb information, to develop something that is called procedural memory. It has been shown that if a human being is deprived of deep sleep, his mind will start not to register new information, and we lose our mind if we are not allowed to deep sleep. So to have a well-constructed house was crucial for human beings in order to develop higher cognition attitude. So you see, the human house is not just something more that we had, something that we invented. Without a proper house, a well-built house, so that you don't have to worry about predators, you don't have to worry about nothing, you can just sleep, deep sleep. That kind of house was necessary in order for us to become human beings. And when we built some safe house, we managed to sleep better, and so to build better house. Better house, better sleep, better intelligence. It's a kind of spiral. The better you build your house, the better you will sleep in the night. The better you will sleep in the night, the more you will become intelligent. The more you become intelligent, the better will be your shelter. In this spiral, we became what we are today. Our intelligence developed right here. And so now we have the 4 steps that I have already shown you, because we already arrived to the terrestrial shelters of nomadic people. And as I told you in the beginning, the oldest remains that we have are in France, in southern France, and just what we found is the circle of stone. The wood didn't really survive. But studying how these stones are disposed, archaeologists understood that more or less this must have been the shape of the shelter of human beings before we were Homo sapiens. These were 500,000 years ago. So during Homo ergaster. Homo ergaster is the one who built this house. You can see this is more or less the evolution of Homo in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, and in America. So the very beginning was in Africa, Homo ergaster. Then it divided in Asia, it was Homo erectus, in Africa and Europe, Homo antecessor, which after became Homo rhodesiensis. One part in Europe became Neanderthal, and then Homo sapiens in this short time went in all the 5 continents. How it happened that others took millions of years to stay in just one continent, and then Homo sapiens in 100,000 years conquered all the 5 continents. Again, it's because of the shelter. This is a house that we have found in Siberia, a region of Russia. is 25,000 years old. And the time Russia was like today Russia, a very cold place, a place where you cannot survive if you don't have a house to protect you during the night. This house particularly was built with the bones and the skin of a mammoth, a now extinct animal. And here's a nice thing for the architects is, we architects, we like to use a kind of analogy when we speak about the structural parts of the building, we call them the bones of the building. And when we speak about the external part, we say the skin of the building. In this case, the bones are made out of bones, and the skin is made out of skin. It's a very literal construction. And of course, it's so well preserved because it was frozen. This came just straight out from so it's not a reconstruction. This is actually the real house preserved. In Ukraine, in Russia, you find this kind of houses. And then you can see that the shelters are somehow just a slight modification of natural environment. I don't know if you can see, but these are not just sticks. These are live trees. They are not planted. They are just live trees which has been bent, connected with some rope and unified with the skin or whatever it is on the top. Here we are with American natives. From that typology, so from the natural trees, they passed to a more abstract objects. So these are no more live trees, but they are just sticks. And this is called TP and was a very common used typology of shelter among the Native Americans. It took a lot of other shapes. Also, this one is very near between the environmental and the human protection. This is a fallen tree. You can see it here. It's just a naturally fallen tree. And people have just piled wood on it to create under that a bed with a covering that is by definition a shelter. Here we are in Mursi, in Hammer, with the Hammer of Ethiopia, and it's not very clear to see, but also in this case there is one tree that is inclined and carrying all the structure, and then the wood just piled on it. Then some nomads started, like these Afar people, to build a better kind of shelter. And so it's a pity to leave it there and then to build another one. So since they started to bring with them animals, they carry with them at least the structure of their shelters. The same is done in Mongolia. This is a yurta. It's called yurta. It's a typology of house which can be packed and moved somewhere else. And then we arrive to the huts. As I said, when agriculture was invented, we passed at a more fixed inhabitation. Probably you know this tribe, these are Walaita. Walaita people have this famous hut. I saw also in Hawassa someone like this. But this is typical from Alaba tribe. And one thing that I don't know if you see here, but if you know this kind of hut, you know, is that all around there are some holes to leave the air come inside to keep your head cold and not make it warm. When you see how they build a house, you see that they plaster it up to a certain height. And then all around, again, they leave the same principle that in the cup. No? So this can tell us something about how people living there perceive the hut. It's a representation of the self. It's an organism itself, the hut. That is why huts, even if they are well done, like the Gurage ones, I don't know if you know, very big, very beautiful. Usually, when a person dies, the son doesn't go to live in that house. Just they leave the house to die together with the person. Because for people living in huts, the house is something really as an extension of the body. It's not something that you can sell or exchange with someone else or inherit. It's like your body. Here I will jump, otherwise I will go too long. Okay, this one is the Gurage hut. I forgot that I've put here. This is newer. You can see the beautiful decorations. This is a very strange house that I pictured here in Ethiopia, because it has some traits of the Sidama hut and some traits of the Wolaita hut. It's a kind of something in the middle between the two. Here we are in South Sudan. You see again the same what we said for the nests. Also the huts have a very various and variegate typology. Let me say just a few words about this one, then we finished. This is a hut that you can find in Cameroon, Central Africa, and it's made just by mud. There is no wood, there is no straw, it's just mud. It's very thin, the wall is 3 or 4 centimeters thick. Now let's ask, what are these shapes that we see outside? And you see here there is something which is really typical of traditional and vernacular architecture. For one question, you have many answers. If you ask in this kind of building why there is a beam here, the answer is one, is very clear, is just to carry what there is above it. But if you ask why there is this decoration, you have multiple answers. Let's see what they are. First of all, each clan build a different kind of decoration. So when you look at the decoration, if you are from there, you understand that house is from that clan, that other house is from that other clan. So it's a symbolic function. Second one, of course, I called it decoration. It means they are beautiful. So it has an aesthetic function. Then there is a third function that is, we say it's made out of mud. When the rain comes, if this was perfectly flat, some small rivers would start to form when the rain comes and will break it apart. This kind of moving surface forces the rain to follow not a straight line. So it will not go very fast. It will be forced to go more slowly, and it will protect from the watering effect. And then there is, of course, another function that is every year after the rainy season, people will go to add another layer of mud on it. And without too much wood, they cannot build so many scaffolding elements. They directly use it to climb on it. When you have this kind of thing, one element that has many functions, it means this was not designed. This simply came out. People didn't think how we do this house. They simply know how to build their houses. Interestingly enough, those people, they are building the same shape of house, but with a completely different material, which is bamboo. And as far as I know, Dorze are the only ones, not only in Ethiopia, but I think in Africa, who build huts by bamboo without using any other material. There is no wood, there are no nails. This is just bamboo, interconnect. Other place, other house. Okay, here we are near to the North Pole, where they build igloo using snow. You know, Eskimo people, this kind of people, they have 17 words to say snow. If the snow is a little bit more frozen, they call it with a different name. If it is more liquid, they call it with another name. If it is very white, another name. So they really know about snow, and they select the right one, not too much hard, otherwise it's too heavy, not too much soft, otherwise it will fall down, to build their houses. Mozambique, we can go all around the world. And here you see another thing interesting. This is a house that I have found in Lalibela. This is somehow in the middle between a hut and the house, because you see that the walls are already perpendicular, like in a house, but the roof is still the old one. Things are changing. Here we are like in half of the process. Of course, this happens when people is used to build huts, one here, one there, so it can be round. Then when the city becomes too much crowded, they have to build many buildings, one near to another one. They have to switch to the straight walls, and sometimes also to grow vertically. So this one because it's growing vertically, this one because it's becoming straight walls. They are both intermediate typologies between the hut and the house. The same applies for Dogon people in Mali. And then when the walls became straight, the first cities come. This is Jericho, which according to historical register was founded around 6,000 or 7,000 years ago. And from there it's not difficult to understand, okay, the first houses in Ethiopia, in northern Ethiopia. I think you know about monkey head technology. I don't have to explain to you, you will explain to me. And this kind of more sophisticated technology brought to the condominium. Condominium is the last cycle of human inhabitation. And interestingly enough, it started just with the empires. It never started with the cities. Even bigger cities didn't have. But in the Roman Empire, in the Chinese Empire, in the Persian Empire, when there is an empire, also condominiums are starting. This one is a Roman one, and you can see very well how it came. There were many different houses, one near to each other, then they have been unified, super-elevated, and they became a condominium. This one is one from China. The walls, look at the thickness of these walls. These are like 1.5 meters thick walls. For security reason, these are closed condominiums, and in some regions of China, people is still living in this kind of beautiful traditional mud condominiums. And this is Yemen, where you find the houses at ground +9 built by mud blocks. This is the history that we went through, from the eggs to the burrows, to the nests, and to the beds. Then coming to the human building construction, from the ground shelters to the huts, to the houses, to the condominiums. What can tell to us as architects what we have seen? Let's make some examples. This is a Nubian vault. I think all of you have seen it, and some of you also work at it. It's a catenary vault with inclined courses to be built without any framework. From where this idea comes? Who invented it? Not human being. This is a kind of wasp who is building this kind of exactly Nubian vault using exactly the same materials that is mud. Here there is one sample. These are kind of artificial eggs. You know, this wasp kills some spiders and put it inside. Then they put it one of their eggs, they seal it, so that when the egg opens, the small guy will start to eat all the spiders, and then will come out, will break the egg. It's not a real egg, it's an extended phenotype egg, but this is what came out. And then, of course, you can take some lesson for organic architecture, because there is some process and some idea that you can take. This is something that I did in Hawassa. These are other examples of architects much greater than me, and still you can see that these people, they have looked at how nature works. They took some inspiration to make good architecture, but pay attention, nature has some reason to make curved lines. The nests are never straight, but not for artistic value, because there is a reason, no? One reason is a curved surface is more resistant than a straight surface, which can always fall down. So these are good architectures because the architects not only looked at the shape and tried to make it again, but they went deep in copying the animals. Remember, in architecture, to copy is allowed. It's even desirable. But to copy in a good way. Because if you simply say, I don't like straight lines, so I want to make something strange, this is not architecture. You can see it. This is just a drunk man drawing something, asking sorry to Frank Gehry, but this is the reality. There is no reason to have these lines, while in this architecture there is some reasons to have these lines. Okay. Then not only to copy, but also to interact. And these are the last two slides. You see, when I showed you in the beginning that some insects are building a kind of nest using small grains, some good mind designer decided, what if I give some gold, some precious stones to these animals, and I let them work. These are not assembled by humans trying to imitate the animals. This is just material given to the animals, and the animals made the work to design these jewels. So it's possible some kind of interaction among animal and human architecture. Also, in a much easier way, this is me producing different kinds of blocks. And when you compare different kind of soil, you take soil from the surface, soil from the underground, soil from the potters who are making their work, and then you take soil from the termite nest. You will always see, when you go to laboratory and you compress these blocks, you will always see that termite nest soil is way stronger, like 3 or 4 times stronger compared to the normal soil. Why is it? Because the termites go around, they spit the sand, the big grains, they just eat the clay, they add some of their saliva to it, and they create the perfect mix to have the most resistant house. So if you use termite architectures as a material to build your own architecture, that is another way of interacting. With this, I finished my presentation. I want to say thank you very much for the patience of listening me.